Gurudevo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om. Illi nodi. See, I think you may remember. Hereafter our classes will be from 11:30 to 12:30. Okay. So others know my Sugama and other classes, but in Gita I forgot to mention. I mentioned in my WhatsApp group. I mentioned hereafter we will have 11:30 to 12:30. Okay. So we were discussing 20th shloka. We have just finished, I think. Sthira buddhi rasam moodha na prahrushyet priyam prapya nodvijed prapya chapriyam. Jnani means his very understanding of himself. His understanding of himself as the Atma, as the consciousness, not an individual. Individuality is an appearance based upon body, mind and sense organs. Body, sense organs and mind. And if he corrects his angle of looking at himself, if he corrects his way of looking, that means instead of looking at himself through the body, sense organs and mind, he looks at himself directly. That means he sees what he is, as he is, not in a context, not in a situation of body, sense organs and mind. So such an enlightened person. Enlightened means who understands as it is. Such a person, how he behaves, means how he looks at the world. How he looks at the world, that means the understanding of his truth. How does it affect his understanding, his outlook towards the world? Okay. Just a minute. As we told in the previous class, Bhagavad Gita explains this too. So in one shloka, na prahrushyet priyam prapya. Now the body is there. Body is continuously, body, sense organs. Body is in continuously touch with the world through sense organs, of course. So that means when the body and sense organs are continuously in touch with the external world, that means there is a perception. Perception is instinctive. You have not brought perception. You find yourself with the perception. See, note this. When you are in the waking, perception is there. You waking and perception are not two. When there is perception, you are awake. When there is no perception, you are asleep. That's all. Perception means both subject-object relationship. You are a subject being related to the object through sense organs and mind. So this perception, which is natural, which is instinctive, brings in its wake, when you are in touch with various objects, harsha, vishada. Certain experiences bring harsha, that is rejoicing. Rejoicing means you like those pleasant experiences. Certain experiences are unpleasant. Perception is instinctive, natural, and this perception brings about pleasant, unpleasant experiences. And seeing this pleasant and unpleasant experiences, person, if he is an individual, he gets affected. He rejoices and feels bad. feels sorrowful with these pleasant, unpleasant experiences. So, this one who identifies with the pleasant and unpleasant experience is an individuality. But an enlightened jnani, that is jnani or an enlightened person, he doesn't identify with these pleasant, unpleasant experiences because his very existence is consciousness. His being is consciousness independent of perception and its reactions. Perception produces certain experiences in the mind, certain reactions in the mind. Perception produces certain reactions in the mind, but as an enlightened being, he remains away from the perception. Means perception is an imposed on him. A perception is an imposition in the consciousness. Consciousness itself remains untouched by perception as well as its mental reactions to it. The mind's reactions come to the perception. But a jnani is a sakshi, a witnessing consciousness, which is untouched by the perception and its reactions of the mind. Two things you see. Mind instinctively reacts and perception is instinctively there. He says, na prahurshet priyam prapya nodvijed prapya chapriyam. Means he doesn't remain at the level of mind which continuously keeps reacting to the perception. A jnani, an enlightened person, is not a bhokta. Bhokta is an experiencer. Experiencer keeps reacting to the perception in the form of rejoicing and depressing. He feels elated and also depressed. Depressed means he feels unhappy. But an enlightenment means discovering the sakshi as unaffected by the perception and it is unaffected by the reactions of the mind. The consciousness is both not a perception. Consciousness is independent of perception and independent of mind's reaction. If I identify with the mind, I come to have these reactions of rejoicing and depressing. Feeling sad and rejoicing. You feel joy and sadness is a reaction of the mind. Then I undergo those experiences. I am tossed by those experiences. I am subject to those experiences. But when he understands, I am not an individual identified with the mind and therefore identify with the reactions. See, I am not an individual identified with the mind, therefore I am not an experiencer of these reactions. Reactions are appearances, false appearances in the consciousness. Consciousness itself is not affected by neither by the perception nor by the reactions of the mind. Okay, that means he is free. Perception is at the level of sense organ, reaction is at the level of mind, and he is a sakshi of both sense organs and mind. Therefore, na prahrushyet priyam prapya, he doesn't rejoice when there is a pleasant perception. Nodvijed prapya chapriyam, when there is an unpleasant perception, unpleasant experience, he doesn't react. That means the reaction doesn't pertain to him. It pertains to the mind, not to the consciousness. Consciousness itself doesn't undergo reactions. It doesn't react. Consciousness is by nature just like a silence. Silence doesn't react. In fact, being free from reaction is silence. Silence is the one which is free from reaction. Like space is naturally existing, self-existing. It is not disturbed by the coming and going of the objects. The forms come and go. Space is unaffected. The mirror is unaffected by the reflections in it. Various colors, various forms appear in it. Similarly, consciousness is like the mirror and the world is like reflections in it. The reflections don't touch the surface of the mirror nor the inside of the mirror. The reflections touch neither the surface nor they enter into the mirror. See, mirror is at one level. Reflections, the reflected objects are at another level. See, reflected objects only appear, they don't touch the mirror. See how interesting it is. How the reflected appearances don't touch the mirror. Similarly, neither the sense organs nor the mind touch the consciousness. Neither sense organs nor the mind touch the consciousness. See even the wakeful consciousness. First, let us see the wakeful consciousness. The consciousness of waking state, the entire wakefulness, the very wakefulness is consciousness. So in the waking state, you have a pleasant, unpleasant experiences at the level of mind. Mind, if identifies, it feels elated or it feels depressed. But when you don't identify, means you are not the mind, you are consciousness. That means the consciousness that is reflected in the mind identifies with the mind. Then the mind's reactions become the reactions of the consciousness. But if the the consciousness that is reflected in the mind, it has got two ways, two options. Either it can identify with the mind, or it can understand, I am not related to mind, I belong to consciousness. The consciousness that is reflected in the mind can have two. Either it can feel, identify with the mind. If it identifies with the mind, it assumes all the mental states. Mental states belong to the consciousness. Which consciousness? The reflected in the mind. Like the light fallen on the book. The light which falls on the book, it assumes the shape of the book. But the light itself doesn't. Two levels light has got. The light which falls on the books and reaches our eyes, that light assumes the shape of book. But the light which has not fallen, or the light which is seen from different from the book, it doesn't assume the shape of book. It remains formless. So the consciousness which is reflected in the mind, either it can identify with the mind, or it can understand mind is different. The consciousness is really is outside the mind. It is not a part of mind. Let us see. Now let us apply this to our waking state. Is wakeful consciousness part of the waking world, or it is at the edge of the waking world? The space in the room, if you see this example, you can understand. The space in the room trapped in the room? Is the space trapped in the four walls? If you see the space in the room is trapped between the four walls, then it is a jiva. If you see space is not trapped in the walls, in fact space is independent of four walls. Walls are imposed on the space. Space itself is untouched by walls. The space can be seen two ways. The space which is trapped in the four walls, or the space untouched by the walls and independent. Okay, if the consciousness that is reflected in the mind, if it conforms, not FIRM, FORM, conform, FORM, conforms means it follows it. If the consciousness reflected in the mind identifies with the four walls of mind, mind means in the illustration four walls. If the space identify with the four walls, it looks like a small space, an area of space. But the space itself is not an area, because space is independent of walls. Okay, see how you look at it. The angle of looking. One looking makes you feel that space is trapped. In another way of looking, space is free, not trapped in the walls. That's all. Similar to this, is the consciousness trapped in the mind, or mind itself is an imposition in the consciousness? Mind itself is, that means the reflected consciousness. Does it feel that I am with the mind, or my original nature is consciousness, I am not trapped in the mind? Does consciousness reflected in the mind, does it feel, or you can say waking state, the consciousness reflected in the waking state, does it feel one with the waking objects, waking body, waking mind, waking sense organs? Does the wakeful consciousness, does it feel that I am part of the mind? If you are a part of the mind, you are within the waking state. See, is the wakeful consciousness within the waking state? Waking world, state means waking world. Is the wakeful consciousness within the waking world, or the waking world is in the consciousness? See the whole shifting the vision. Is the waking world within consciousness? Then consciousness is not trapped in the world. If consciousness is not trapped in the waking world, then it is independent. It's a free. Or consciousness is part of the waking world, sticking to the each object, relating to the each object. If the consciousness is in relationship with each object, then it is trapped in relationship with each object. Mind and object, mind and object. In each relationship there is a thought. If consciousness feels that it is trapped in each relationship, then that is a bound consciousness. That is jivahood. That is jivahood. But if consciousness is pervades the entire waking state, it is not stuck to the each object of the waking state. Consciousness is not getting stuck to the each object. All objects, the subject means the mind, sense organs, object, the thoughts, time, space, everything is within consciousness, which is pervading the entire waking state. See that? Entire waking state it pervades, means it is not stuck to any given object, it is not trapped. See in the example, in the illustration, compare with it. If the space is trapped in the room, it is a jiva. If you feel the space is trapped in the room, it is jiva. Or the space is independent of four walls. Four walls can't bind the space. The four walls, or even the ceiling and floor and the ceiling, and four walls, 4 plus 2, 6. These 6 borders, 6 borders don't trap the space. Space is independent. Do you see? Space is not trapped. Walls cannot trap. Walls are within space. Space is independent. Space is untouched, unconditioned by walls. Okay, similarly, the consciousness, the entire wakeful consciousness, is it part of the waking world? Means, is it in relationship with each object, or It is not trapped by any one object. It is not trapped by sense organs. It is not trapped by mind, thoughts of any mind. It is not trapped in time and place. It pervades the entire waking state, entire waking world. The consciousness is not trapped in the waking world, but pervades the entire waking state. Waking state is imposed on the consciousness. Consciousness itself is independent, like the mirror. Consciousness is independent like the mirror, or like the space. It is not trapped in the walls. I hope you understand this. See how do you look at it? If you see the consciousness in relationship with each individual object, you will be an individual knower. Individual knower, individual object. Individual knower, individual object. Then you see consciousness is trapped. Means consciousness becomes equal to mind. Caught up in the mind. Mind means a given thought. Consciousness becomes a given thought. It gets trapped in the relationship of subject-object. It is always in relation with one object. It is always in a state of mind. It is a state of mind related to given object. Consciousness is a state of mind related to given object. This is trapped. This is called adhyasa. This is called jiva. This is called samsara. Okay? You see that? It is right here in your anubhava. But the consciousness, not trapped by the mind, that means thoughts come and go, like the waves come and go. Is water trapped in waves? See, if you look from the waves, it looks that water is trapped in the waves. If you look from the angle of waves, water is trapped in the waves. But you look from the angle of water, waves are only superficial appearances. They can't trap water. Water is water. See, the just very angle of looking changes everything. The way of looking changes everything. Isn't it? The water is not trapped in the wave. Because wave doesn't mean anything. To the water, what does the wave mean? Wave submerged in water. Wave submerges in water. Water doesn't feel the weight of wave. Does the water feel the wave of weight? Weight of wave. The water doesn't feel the weight of wave. It is not trapped because wave is nothing. Wave is already merged into water. When? It is always. It's always submerged. Wave has no existence apart from water. So you change your vision to water. Water is water. Vast and all-pervading. It is pervading the entire wave, before the wave, during the wave, and after the wave. Water is water. Continuously water. All-pervasive water. Similarly, water and wave. Consciousness and the waking world. Waking world means thoughts. Waking world means thoughts. Various thoughts and experiences. Now see the consciousness and experiences and thoughts. Experiences and thoughts are like waves. What is the waking world? Waking world is thoughts and experiences. Consciousness is like water. Is water trapped in wave? No. Similarly, is consciousness trapped in the waking thoughts and waking experiences? Or waking experiences are simple thoughts. Thoughts are superficial appearances. They get submerged in the wakeful consciousness. See? You are not stuck to each experience, each thought. If you pay attention to each thought and each experience, you are caught. You are trapped. If you feel caught and trapped, that is jiva. That is individuality. See, jiva is only a way of looking. There is no jiva otherwise. There is no jiva. It is just a way of looking. It's one angle of looking. You are caught. You are caught with each experience, each thought. Now see, you separate yourself. You distinguish. You do viveka. This is what we call. Viveka means you distinguish the consciousness, not trapped in thoughts and experiences. Like water is not caught in the waves. Water is not trapped in the waves. Wakeful consciousness is not part of the waking world. How beautiful it is. Wakeful consciousness is not part of the waking world, means waking thoughts and experiences. Consciousness is not trapped. If you feel consciousness is trapped in each experience, you become an individual. You become a jiva. You are samsari. You are bound by time and place. Because mind creates thoughts, experiences, time and space. All this is mind. Time, space, subject-object relationship, pain and pleasure, good and bad, all these things come. All these in mind. Minds are various thoughts. Is consciousness trapped in the mind, or mind is only simple waves of consciousness? Mind, sense organs, all these mean only thoughts and experiences. All these thoughts are only within consciousness. Consciousness is independent. It is not trapped. It is not touched. The wakeful consciousness pervading the entire waking world. It is beginningless, endless. Consciousness doesn't begin, doesn't end. The world is like a wave appears in consciousness. Okay, consciousness is natural. It is a self-existing, self-shining. It doesn't come, doesn't go. The coming and going itself is a very mind. Coming and going is a thought. It is a mind. It is time. Time itself is another thought. See, coming and going is a thought. The time itself is a thought. Thought is like a wave in water. Thought itself is a wave in consciousness. It's submerged in consciousness. Consciousness is full water, like water. Whole waking state. Waking world merges into waking state. State is consciousness. Waking world are various thoughts. Thoughts are not solid entities. Thoughts, objects are not entities. The waking world, you see the waking state as a waking world. Means what? Waking state is only a thought. The thoughts, you are taking them as solid entities. Thoughts look like solid objects and entities. There is no solid object. There are no solid entities. They are just thoughts. Thoughts are only the various appearances of water. Surface of water, they are just appearances. Thoughts are appearances of consciousness. See, consciousness is in and through the thought. Consciousness is inside the thought, outside the thought. Before the thought, during the thought, after the thought. All thoughts are submerged in the consciousness. Consciousness is spontaneous, self-existing, self-shining. It doesn't begin, doesn't end. It is there. The is, the whole consciousness. If consciousness recognized independent of waking state, there is no waking world. It has swallowed up the waking world. The waking world is thoughts. Thoughts are like waves submerged into water. When all the time they submerge, they are never away. The waves are never away from water. The thoughts are never away from consciousness. Consciousness alone is one infinite consciousness. That is Sushupti. What we call the infinite consciousness without any demarcation, without any dimensions. The dimension demarcation is subject-object duality, time and place. All these dimensions are merged into, drowned in water. All the dimensions are drowned in consciousness. Various thoughts are various dimensions. Various dimensions are drowned in consciousness. Consciousness is just is. Okay. What else to say? It's just as simple as this. But if you feel that you are caught, that means, take the wave and water. If your attention is in wave, you think that water is caught. Water is trapped in wave. It looks because You give too much of, your attention is too much preoccupied with wave. Your attention is too much occupied with wave. Wave is only a shape, only a dimension. Means it has got borders. It has got edges. When you see something having edges, having borders, then it is a limited entity. Water has no borders. Wave has borders. Thought has got a border. Thought begins and ends. Thought has got edges. Conscious has no edge, no beginning and no end. Wakeful consciousness doesn't begin, doesn't end. The very idea of beginning is a thought. Okay, consciousness having edges is called thought. Like consciousness having a dimension is called, water having a dimension is called wave. Dimension, some demarcation. Water having demarcations is called wave. But the wave, look at the water. It merges into water. It drowned. Drowned means what? No edges, no borders. What is drowning? You don't take the borders, the edges of wave seriously. When there are no edges, no borders, then it is wave. Then it is water. No borders and no edges. Border, edges same. No borders or no edges, then it is drowned in water. When? All the time. Continuously. Eternally it is drowned in water. Because wave is nothing but a water alone in another name and form. Vacharambanam. Vacharambanam vikaro namadeyam. As Chandogya Upanishad, it is only just a name. A name, a thought, just an angle of looking. That's all. Therefore, wave is merged, submerged, drowned in water. When? When it is not, tell me. When is not the wave drowned in water? When is not the thought drowned in consciousness? Thought is a dimension, a border, an edge, a beginning and ending. When you see a beginning and ending, a dimension, the same consciousness is called wave. The same consciousness is called thought. Otherwise, there is no such thing called thought. Thought is only a way of looking. The thought is drowned in consciousness. Means it has no borders. It has no edges. It has no beginning and ending. It is just consciousness. Okay? It is just consciousness. Body is a thought. Sense organs are thoughts. Mind is a thought. World is a thought. Isn't it? Worldly objects are thoughts. All these thoughts are just waves in water. All the thoughts are waves in consciousness. That means you see them as a given thing. Take it as a given, this much, then that is a thought. Don't put an edge, remove the hands. Then whole space is one. Indivisible, unbroken, infinite space. Similarly, the indivisible, unbroken consciousness, indivisible consciousness, all the thoughts drowned when? All the time. All the thoughts are drowned in consciousness. Consciousness is infinite. Infinite has no dimension. No dimension means no thought. Dimension is thought. Dimension means an area. A dimension is a thought, but the dimension is drowned in water, in consciousness. Consciousness is infinite. Means it has no dimension. A dimensionless existence. It has no edges. It has no border. No beginnings and ends. It just is. It is self-existing. It is self-shining. Everything is swallowed up. Therefore, consciousness is free. If consciousness is seen as a border, then you are seeing consciousness within the mind. Consciousness is trapped in the mind, trapped in the thought, trapped in each experience, each thought, each object. Then you are a jiva. Then you are an individual. See, jiva and Brahma, they are not two. A wrong angle of looking is jiva. Correct the wrong angle, you are Brahman. That's all. You are infinite consciousness. Consciousness which has no beginning and ending, which has no dimension. That is Brahman. If you see as if you are trapped in a thought, in a relational, that is Jiva. That's all. There are no two things. One is Jiva, another is Brahman. Brahman seen as a relative thing, a relational thing. A relational is a thought. That is Jiva. Then subject, object, both are one thought, one consciousness. They are submerged in consciousness, drowned in consciousness. Then there is nothing other than consciousness. It is infinite. Okay, that's what he is telling. Na prahrushyet priyam prapya, na dvijet prapya cha priyam. Take each shloka, contemplate, trace it until the consciousness is arrived. And what you call them, they are only references, way of looking. You refer to them in that way, therefore it appears. The reference drop, the reference is drowned. The way of like wave is only a way of looking with a given thing. A given means a border. You remove the borders and it's already water, drowned in water. When? All the time. All the time drowned in water. Then there is no wave apart from water. There are no thoughts. Then there is no world apart from consciousness. Okay. Bah. Okay. Na prahrushyet priyam prapya, na dvijayet prapya cha priyam, sthira buddhihi. Otherwise, the buddhi will be assuming various thoughts. If the consciousness feels that it is trapped in mind, mind means thought. Don't imagine mind means something. Mind means simple thought. Thought means a dimension. If it feels that it is trapped in thought, then it is looks like limited. Okay. Then it looks astira buddhi. That means thoughts keep changing. Consciousness looks it is changing. But when the dimensions are removed, dimensions are drowned in consciousness, the mind gets drowned in consciousness. There is only consciousness. You see, the world is a state is consciousness, wakeful consciousness, beginningless, endless. When the wakeful consciousness swallows up the whole waking state, waking world, that's called deep sleep. Deep sleep, don't imagine that there is another state of mind. Swallowing the mind is called deep sleep. It's not in another state of mind. There is no mind in deep sleep. Don't imagine deep sleep. Don't recall deep sleep. When you swallow up everything, you are deep sleep. Deep sleep is another name for yourself. You alone remain by swallowing the subject-object duality. When you swallow, drown subject-object duality and stay alone, all alone, one infinite alone. All alone, infinite. That is deep sleep. Deep sleep only is not a state. It is yourself. You are not a state to yourself. Are you a state? A self-existing, eternal one has no state. An infinite has no state. An infinity has no state. A small thing alone will have various states and conditions. Infinity has no conditions, no states. It is the whole thing. It itself is infinite. It is all pervasive. Therefore, it swallows the entire world. When? All the time. All the time it is already swallowed. There is no such thing called world apart from wakeful consciousness. The wakeful consciousness, seen as wakeful consciousness, the world doesn't exist apart from it. Because world means waves. Waves are already drowned in the water. There is only water. Similarly, you see only consciousness, and that remaining all along consciousness alone is called Sushupti. Sushupti is not another state of mind that you leave the waking and go elsewhere and again come back. That's a waking angle. That is useful for karma kanda. That is useful for the waking state. That's okay. For Vedanta, we are talking of Anubhava Drishti. Okay. It is a Paramarthika Drishti. Therefore, consciousness alone, which swallows the entire waking state. When? All the time. There is never a time when the waking world exists apart from the wakeful consciousness. All consciousness alone. The infinite consciousness. That's all. The same thing you called Sushupti. Calling Sushupti is also from the, as a contrast to the waking, but itself is, you can't give any name to it. You can't call it as a consciousness, you can't call it as waking, you can't call it as deep sleep or anything. All the names are tentative, relative. Names are relative. Being is not relative. Self-existence, that's why we call self-existence. Self-existence means what? It is not relative. It is not a given thing. A given is dimension. Consciousness is not a given thing. The existence is not a given thing. Existence means being. Being is everything. It swallows everything. Swallows means there is nothing apart from it. It is a way of telling. Again it drowns. Wave is drowned in water. This is again way of telling. Otherwise, when is the wave apart from water? There is no question of drowning. Drowning is only expression. For us to say that, don't see wave as something separate from water. That's all. Even to call that it is drowned is only a way of expression. Otherwise, water is just water. Swallowing everything, spreading everything, spreading all waves, pervading all the waves, swallowing all the waves. Similarly, consciousness is not trapped in the thoughts, is not trapped in the waking world, means is not a jiva. If you feel trapped, you are a jiva, because you are a jnata. Jnata is related to gneyam. Subject is trapped to the object. Subject is stuck with the object. Subject is a relative state, because it is a relation with object. When object is not there, you can't call even subject. It is pure being, non-dual being, infinite being. Okay. The subject is a relative name. Okay. Subject is relative. But consciousness is infinite. There is nothing to be related to. Because whatever you think of, it is already drowned in it. There is nothing to be related to. Therefore, relation doesn't exist. Subject-object duality gets drowned. It is just a way of looking. Just a way of looking. Therefore, it is only jnanam. That's why Vedanta says only jnanam solves the problem. Shankaracharya is an advocate of jnanam. Just knowledge. Okay. Silence. Silence is dimensionless. Silence is without any location. Silence has no location in time, no location in space, no dimension. You can't say where it is, how it is. Silence is free from all these dimensions, free from location, free from area, free from relational. Okay. It is non-dual. It is non-relational, self-existing. It just is. Similarly, consciousness is just one. Sthira buddhi. Asammudah. Asammudah means he is free from ignorance. Because there is no confusion, there is no misunderstanding. Sthira buddhi. Asammudah. Brahmavit. He is a knower of Brahman. Why a knower of Brahman? He is Brahman. See, first he says he is a knower of Brahman. Second he says, when you know Brahman, you are Brahman. That means you are dimensionless consciousness without subject-object duality. Subject-object duality is swallowed up, is drowned. Therefore, consciousness is not trapped. Like the space is not trapped in the four walls or in a room. The space is not trapped in the room. In fact, room is within the space. The space swallows the room. Space swallows all the cities, all the buildings, all the land, the entire earth, moon, sun, and stars. Space is so infinite, it swallows everybody. Similarly, consciousness swallows everything. Nothing is apart from it. Therefore, Brahmavit Brahmani Sthitaha. We need not teach you every shloka of Bhagavad Gita or Upanishad. Few shlokas. A right person, a good adhikari, good Vedantin. A few shlokas we tell you, we help you to understand how to unlock the meanings of these words. The meaning is not a literal meaning. Each word is only turning your attention from the thought to the consciousness. That if you learn, all shlokas mean the same thing. If you learn one shloka, entire Bhagavad Gita exists in one shloka. Therefore, it is a very strange, you see. Where is Bhagavad Gita? The meaning is Bhagavad Gita. What it is teaching you to turn your attention to consciousness. Now, this turning your attention to consciousness is found in which shloka? All the shlokas mean the same thing. If you learn one shloka, you learn entire Gita. See, there are not many shlokas. All shlokas mean the same thing. If you learn one shloka, you turn your attention to consciousness, then all Bhagavad Gita is you. It becomes Brahman, it is yourself. Therefore, how many shlokas you need to learn? How many shlokas do you think you need to learn in order to know the truth? You can't say. You may understand in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 or all 700 you may need to learn. Depending upon how your mind is ready to remain free from being trapped. If you see the wave is drowned already in water, then how much time do you need? People may ask, how much time do you need to understand wave is water? Wave is drowned in water. How much time do you need? How many shlokas do you need? How many sentences do you need to say that wave is water? Nothing. You don't need anything. Just one sentence may be enough. It depends upon how you understand. If your mind is mature, one sentence is enough. So whole Vedanta is in one sentence. Ultimately, it's just turning your attention and see there is no such thing called wave. There is no such thing called world apart from consciousness. It is drowned in consciousness. Okay. Therefore, sthira buddhi rasam mudho brahmavid brahmani sthitaha. Bhashyas, next 21st shloka. Bhashyasparsheshvasaktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukhamakshayam. This shloka is slightly different idea it is telling. All these ideas are different prakriyas, different way of telling you. Bhashyasparsheshvasaktatma. See, that means he is not involved in the perception. A person who feels identified with the perception, he gets all pleasant, unpleasant experiences because he becomes an individual. He says, Bhashyasparsheshvasaktatma, one who is not involved in the perception. That means he doesn't stand as an experiencer of thoughts. He stands apart from it. A person who is untouched by experiences at the level of sense organs, experiences at the level of mind or the intellect. Ignore them or take them lightly. Don't identify with the experiences of sense organs, mind and intellect. Okay, that means you see the consciousness not as a trapped in the thought, not as a trapped in the relational subject-object relation. See the consciousness pervading. So the sense pleasures, sense experiences, sensations are imposed on the consciousness. Consciousness is not trapped in any sensation. Consciousness is not trapped in emotions. Emotions are only thoughts. Thoughts get drowned in consciousness. And your identifications, experiences are also merged into consciousness. It is just one consciousness. Okay. Bhashya Swasaktatma, you are not interested. Asakta means you are not attached. You are not identified with the external objects. What is external? Relation is external. Feeling a relational experience is external. They say Bhashya means external object. What is this external? External is nothing but looking at this relational state is external. Consciousness is neither external nor internal because it is a non-relational. This relational is called external. Then dropping the relation is internal. In fact, you can't call it internal. It is free from external, internal. It just is non-dual. Okay. Bhashyasparsheshva saktatma. An atma which is not bound to the external. External means relational. It is not trapped in the mind. That consciousness, Atmani yat sukham, he gains the joy, happiness, fullness, completeness in the Atma. Atma is independent. It is infinite. That is a joy, that's a happiness, that's a bliss. Sab Brahma. A person gets the anandam of Atma. Atma is free. Anandam means freedom. Freedom from insecurity. Freedom from fear. Freedom from pleasure and pleasure. Freedom from pressure. Freedom from tension. Freedom from being boundness. No modification, no change. It just is self-existent. Okay. So that Atma, Sab Brahma Yoga Yukta Atma, he becomes one with Yoga Yukta. Brahma Yoga means joining with Brahma. Atma, he joins with Brahma Yoga. He joins with an identification with Brahma. Means he is one, he is Brahma. That means he is free from the trapping of mind, sense organs, and intellect. Sukham akshayam ashnute, he attains unending happiness, endless, no limit. Because why do you say consciousness is unending? Because it is his nature. What is your nature? Atma is Ananda. That's all. Therefore, it doesn't begin and end. The very nature of Atma is Ananda. Okay. The very nature of Atma is Ananda. Therefore, Atma is not experiencing Ananda. Ananda is freedom, fearlessness, no changelessness. Changelessness, fearlessness, not trapped, not relational. It is just infinite, self-existing, self-shining. That freedom is Ananda. Okay, Sukham Akshayam Ashnute, endless Ananda he attains. Means what? He discovers that he is already Ananda. He was never bound. There was never bondage. He is always free and happy. Okay, we have concluded 21st also. 21, 21st both are similar. Okay, I think we will proceed to the next shloka. Yehi sansparshaja bhoga is contrasting with the worldly experiences. What I have told, the same thing can be applied. But anyway, it is a manana. Idea-wise, you know it. It is a manana. Inwardly, mind has to be freed from this. Therefore, we have to just repeat it and then release them from all this bondage. Okay. Turn your attention, you are free. You turn this side, you are caught. That's all it means. That's why we say it is only a jnanam. That's why Vedanta says only jnanam liberates you. Ajnanam binds you. Wrong angle, misunderstanding binds you. Understanding frees you. Okay. 12:30. Hereafter, please remember, I have changed. I thought it is a little more convenient to me. 11:30 to 12:30. Okay. Hereafter, we will have the same timings of these classes. Om Shanti. Today is 24th. Tomorrow we will have tomorrow is Monday. Oh, I don't know whether we will have a class or not. Anyway, if I am tired, I will not have. Otherwise, we may have something. Then 26th, the day after tomorrow, is Swamiji's Aradhana day. That day we will be busy there in that what you call hall, in that Samadhi. Because in Swamiji's Aradhana day, a lot of people will come. We'll be talking about Swamiji, his teaching and all that, his life. Each one expresses his own understanding of Vedanta and Swamiji. As a Gunagana, we call him. In praise of Swamiji, in appreciation of Swamiji, so that Aradhana and will have a prasada. Those who come here, they can take. Those who are around near, please definitely come here and have Swamiji's prasada day after tomorrow, 26th. But those who are away, from a distance alone, you do namaskara and whatever is yours. Or you can offer your own Naivedyam at your place to Swamiji, Guruji, whatever you like. So 26th we won't have. Instead of 26th, we'll try to have some class tomorrow. I don't know, depending upon my patience, my energy. Okay, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat.